So the Saints have been rumored to already be exploring the free agency market when it comes to wide receivers that they could potentially reach out to. You should expect to see some wide receivers showing up to New Orleans Saints training camp on a tryout basis and to get a look at some potential players that are out there. Just to name some of the players they could potentially bring in, probably my top candidate would be Golden Tate. He's not going to be a one-for-one replacement of Michael Thomas by any means, but as I referenced in the last segment, Tre'Quan Smith stepped up and played Michael Thomas's role in terms of running his route tree pretty well last season. Did he have 149 catches in Michael Thomas's stead? No. If Michael Thomas were to miss an entire season, could Tre'Quan Smith get 149 catches? Probably not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Tre'Quan Smith makes Michael Thomas expendable or anything like that. Don't blow it out of proportion. All I'm saying is that Tre'Quan Smith ran and played that role pretty well as the X receiver in the New Orleans Saints offense without causing much of a liability at the spot. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a one-for-one replacement of Michael Thomas that a team goes out, or that the team, the New Orleans Saints, goes out and grabs. You can find a complementary piece just to add to your wide receiver rotation. Remember, Sean Payton is one of the absolute best when it comes to scheming up wide receivers. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to take some solace in here as we look at the potential options out there that are on the market. It's July 23rd today here on this Friday. Usually you're not signing starters in free agency. Usually that's not the case. Now there's some exceptions, of course, but usually you're not signing starters at this point in the offseason. So you're looking for somebody that's going to be able to come in, that's going to be able to run some of the routes, that's going to be able to run the scheme, and that's going to be able to work with Sean Payton. Golden Tate could be that guy. He can operate on the outside. He can operate in the slot. If you feel pretty good about what you had last year in the games where you had to get by with guys like Tre'Quan Smith and Marquez Callaway, remember, 2 of the games that Michael Thomas was out, Emmanuel Sanders was also out on the reserve COVID list. So that tandem has worked together before. And then you add Golden Tate to the slot, then all of a sudden you might have something there to where you can still move the ball and you're not going to be the threat that you are with Michael Thomas through the air, but you're at least going to be able to give your quarterback, whoever it may be, whether it's Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, you're going to be able to give them an opportunity here to be able to move forward. How does this affect the quarterback position is going to be the most interesting thing to me. Does all of a sudden one of these quarterbacks become more appealing because of the loss of a weapon at the special teams position? So you're looking for somebody that can be an advanced weapon for you at the quarterback position? That will be something to watch too. Does all of a sudden Taysom Hill's legs become more valuable to you than Jameis Winston's arm because they serve you in another area of the game? I don't have an answer to that. To be completely honest with you, I don't really have an opinion on that. I think it depends on where it is that the Saints decide to build their offense and how they go about it. They're going to pick the quarterback that's going to be able to lead this team regardless of who they're throwing the ball to. That's for certain. So the big thing is going to be, where do the Saints potentially find some wide receiver help? Golden Tate makes a lot of sense. You could also look at some other veterans that are out there in terms of big-bodied guys. Larry Fitzgerald, if he decides to come back to the NFL, could be an option for the Saints, although I think it seems like a foregone conclusion that he would go back to Arizona in that case, even though they acquired A.J. Green over the course of this offseason. Josh Gordon has filed for reinstatement with all of the adjustments in the Saints the NFL's banned substances protocols and lists and all that stuff. So Josh Gordon would be a fantastic option for the New Orleans Saints. They could potentially reunite with Dez Bryant after a very short-lived union at one point back in the 2018 season, 2017, 2018. I mean, there are still those veteran options that are out there. But again, are you really going to find somebody that's going to have an impact on your team at this point in the offseason, right before training camp begins? You can't have too high expectations out there. So you could look at a couple of other names that are there. Kenny Stills, a reunion, a speed guy that could operate with Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill for that matter, who have bigger arms than what Drew Brees had available to him at the end of his career, could be an option. Dede Westbrook, formerly of the Jacksonville Jaguars, could be a great option. Marquise Lee, who I'm sure many of you who have been around for a while heard me sort of wax poetic about when it came to the 2018 offseason when he was available and why I wanted him there. And then, of course, you have the slew of wide receivers that could become available after the preseason or even throughout the preseason, with there being some preseason cuts that happen in between games this year. I do want to mention one more free agent wide receiver that I meant to mention in the last segment that could potentially be an option for the New Orleans Saints. And that could be wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey, 6'3", 218, quintessential X receiver in the NFL. Had just 6 catches for 115 yards last season, appearing in only 7 games. But of course, there was a lot of weird stuff going on at the quarterback position for Philadelphia. The year before that, he was in appeared in 10 games, my apologies, 43 catches, 490 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Maybe the Saints could still get something out of him on a pretty cheap deal. There are a lot of options out there in terms of players that you can add to the mix, but does anybody really come in and demand wide receiver one attention? That might be a little bit tough to maybe, I don't want to say justify, but certainly hard to expect from any receiver coming in that's still on the market at the moment. So the Saints are going to have to really have a combination of things that are going to make up for, or a combination of moves that are going to make up for Michael Thomas. And those moves can be moving players that are already within your system, utilizing Alvin Kamara more as a receiver, making sure that Ty Montgomery is available to you as a receiver to start off the season. There's a lot of different ways that the Saints can go about all this, but it's not just going to be one free agency addition that's going to make up for the loss of Michael Thomas early on in the season. They're going to have to make the right decision at quarterback. They're going to have to utilize Alvin Kamara. The offensive line's going to have to work well. Latavius Murray's going to have to be more a part of the passing game. This affects a lot in a lot of different spaces, but the Saints have weathered adversity before.